Thank you, Dr. Mangalwadi, for that very enlightening and very provocative talk. Many questions, of course, I have leave the floor for others to ask. But one thing that comes up, especially in the narrative that's coming up in the last several years, in the recent 10 years, is about the current dispensation fighting back and coming up with their theology or philosophy, as it were, especially in terms of the ancient India and the medieval India, that we had, what about the universities like Nalanda, Takshashila? What about the books that were written by, the scientific books that were written by our ancients? That is in terms of the intellectual capital that we have. And that was apparently taken by the Arabs, went to Europe, and that then became the basis of modern scientific thought, in a sense, of course, with the Greeks also being there. So that is one aspect of the foundation of India, although, as you say, that it was never one entity in that sense. But what about that capital?
Thank you. India has as much IQ as anybody else. There is no reason for ancient India to lack intelligence, or the present India, or the future India. There were individually brilliant people in many fields, including surgery, etc. But the culture did not allow that ability to develop. So there have been 14 Nobel Prize winners, not all in science and mathematics or medicines or technology. 7 of those have lived outside of India. They're of Indian origin, but not Indian citizens. And the other 7 have been poets, social workers, etc. Indians flourish when they're working in America or Europe. Indian culture stifles them. If you have a very brilliant professor who could win a Nobel Prize, his head of the department won't sanction his projects, would give him too much work so that he never has the time to focus on his research. So we will pull him down. His university will pull him down, the government will pull him down. He can't excel. So there are 14 million Jews, 7 million living in Israel, 7 million living outside. They've won over 200 Nobel Prizes, including mostly in science, technology, medicine. We haven't. We are 140 million. So were there individually brilliant Indians? They were. Their art died down, partly because they were not writing it down. They were passing on their medical knowledge or whatever knowledge to their sons. Knowledge is power, keep it within the family. You don't teach it to others. You pass it down, and ultimately you either don't have a son, or you have a son who is not interested in the family skill or profession. So the answer is that yes, there were brilliant people in India, but the Hindu culture of India, Buddhist culture of India, did not allow them to bless the whole world. A number of reasons. Nalanda and Takshashila you mentioned. No Indian 200 years ago had ever heard of Nalanda and Takshashila, because no Indian was writing about Nalanda and Takshashila. It was providential or accidental that some village boys playing in Bihar pointed to a unnatural hill, little hillock, to a passing English officer, and when the digging began, he discovered this multi-story building, etc. And what is this story? Nobody in the village knew anything about it. They finally put pieces together from Greek writers, Persian writers, Chinese travelers, that this was Nalanda, a Buddhist vihara. No Hindu ashram ever became a university. 2 Buddhist centers of learning, Takshashila and Nalanda, did become centers of learning. But they were teaching the art of killing the mind, how to silence your mind. Today we know as Vipassana. Vipassana was lost in India because it was hippies who went from India to Myanmar, came back. They brought Vipassana back, which was being taught in Nalanda, the art of breathing on your meditating on your breath, breathing to silence your mind. So there is the whole myth that Alauddin Khilji burned the library in Nalanda and it kept burning for 6 months. There is the head of the history department in Delhi University, D.N. Jha, who is a Maithili Brahmin from Bihar. And he has repeatedly pointed out that it was 2 Brahmin ascetic sadhus who burned Nalanda, not Muslims. And the documentary evidence is found in amongst the Nepali Buddhists and Tibetan Buddhists. India had no memory of Nalanda. There may well have been 10,000 teachers there, or 1,000 teachers, 10,000 students. But yes, we are building up a mythology, pretending that these were Hindu centers of learning. They were actually Buddhist centers of learning that Hindus destroyed. But what was being taught there, to say that the Arabs stole our books, passed it on to Europe, why didn't, if a university is burned down, why didn't other Indians rebuild it, kings, or rebuild similar institutions anywhere else in India? So there's a lot of mythology that is being spread about Nalanda and Takshashila. Takshashila was on a trade route, and it disappeared as a learning center when the trade route joined. So nobody burned Takshashila. The trade route changed, so there was no money coming in, so all the people who were in Takshashila who were teaching, it's in Pakistan now, they dispersed. So Takshashila ended. It was never an organized institution like a university, but it was a collection of many learned people who were teaching to whoever was passing by and living on alms. So we need historians who will point this out and who will study. Dr. Vinod Shah has some of this in his paper, which we will publish soon, perhaps as a small booklet, standalone booklet. His focus is on medicine, what was the state of medicine in India. As an example, I don't know if he discusses it in his paper, Delhi is our capital. For 600-700 years, Delhi was ruled from 1192 to 1858. Delhi was ruled by Muslims. What is the oldest hospital in Delhi? The oldest hospital in Delhi is St. Stephen's Hospital. During that entire 600-700 years, Muslim rules, and for almost 300 years, the Mughals were ruling, 250-300 years, they didn't build one hospital for their own women and children. Only medicine that was being practiced in Delhi was Unani Dawai, Greek medicine. So the Muslims in Delhi were practicing Greek medicine, but no hospital was created by the Hindus in Delhi, like Prithviraj Chauhan and others before him. No hospital was created by the Muslims, including the Mughal rule. It was a 16 or 17-year-old British girl. Her brother had been killed in 1857 mutiny. She came to visit Delhi, where her brother had been killed. She sat on Daryaganj. At that time, the Yamuna used to come up to the Red Fort. She sat on the banks of Yamuna River, where women and children were coming to bathe, and she would talk to them and found that there is no hospital in Delhi. So she had a chest of medicines which she would give to women. So some of the women from East India Company, the wives, they became interested in this girl and built her little effort, developed her little effort through contribution to build St. Stephen's Hospital, and then later St. Stephen's College was an Anglican college built by Christians from Cambridge, Christian missionaries from Cambridge. So did India have a lot of excellence, a lot of ability? Yes. Did that excellence and ability and money result in building hospitals, colleges, roads, bridges? No. This is what the Bible gave to India. We don't know these things, so they are able to deceive us. And we have to correct this deception through research such as this, that I've mentioned briefly. But that's the hope behind this book, that it's not just that this one book will begin to sell, and but that it will inspire several hundred young people who will not only research and write, that's your mission, but also create videos, animations, cartoons, shorts, and then make movies to educate, bring truth to the nation, while our leaders are turning history into mythology. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you had mentioned East India Company was run by refractors, but the missionaries came and did made them to do less evil by doing a lot of good. So, is there a story, a real incident which happened where the members of the East India Company wanted to burn a village or wanted to do something really evil, but the missionaries, the white missionaries, stood up and protected Indians, or stood in between them?
Thank you. The classic case is Warren Hastings. I think he was here in Madras, though he may have been in Calcutta, I forgot. The East India Company was putting a lot of pressure on him to give 4 lakhs or 40 lakhs of rupees. With trade, it was hard to get that kind of money. So at that time, the Raja of Rampur, which is in on foothills of Himalayas, very north of UP, he was fighting Afghan infiltrators and others, and he requested that because the East India Company had the best soldiers, it is a company, but in order to protect your trade, you have to have soldiers, because the state doesn't provide any security. The roads have no security. If you're taking ox carts or bullock carts, your goods, you have to protect them yourself. So that's why every trader had soldiers, security. So he asked the East India Company to give him military aid, and Warren Hastings took the money from him and gave him the British Army for a war which had nothing to do with East India Company or with Britain. It was totally unjust. So he used these soldiers to plunder and burn villages, rape women, loot money. Because now he's given 4 lakhs or whatever amount it was, he has to recover that. And then the soldiers have to be paid, so they were given right to loot. This was the turning point. It made the evangelical conscience of England furious that we have a theory of just war. This is a totally unjust and exploitative war. Are we training Indian soldiers to loot India, to loot villages, burn the villages? So in the House of Commons, there is a stone like this on which is inscribed that this is where Warren Hastings stood when Edmund Burke, who is the father of modern conservatism, he was a member of Parliament, a great statesman, and he charged Warren Hastings, and he had a number of days he took to present all the charges of corruption in East India Company. And I've quoted him in this book. He said that Warren Hastings was Governor General of iniquity. He never dined without creating famines in India. So he was the one, the very first one, who really called that to love our neighbor as ourselves means to give India a good governance. Just then the French Revolution started, and the trial of Warren Hastings pulled on for decades. And in the end, he was acquitted because the whole nation lost the interest in it. But the evangelical movement then said we must give to India a professional military. So the evangelical military leaders were sent, particularly to Punjab. Punjab was colonized only in 1840s, 10 years before 57 mutiny. And the so the modern professional military, which is there to defend the nation, not to loot the nation, and which is serving law and justice, this was one of the finest creation of the evangelical movement. The names of who were these military leaders who were transforming British military in India. If you want a short discussion of it, it's in Ian Bradley's book. The book is called Call to Seriousness. The subtitle is The Evangelical Impact on Victorian England, how a rowdy nation was transformed into a civilized nation by the evangelical movement after John Wesley. This is what he's discussing, the call to seriousness. He's making fun of evangelicals, but really bringing out the biblical theology, biblical worldview, which transformed a nation of rowdies into a civilized nation. And he has one chapter, half of it is devoted to Africa, half of it is devoted to India, and about 2-3 pages is on the transformation of military. Nani Palkhiwala, who died 10-15 years ago, he was India's greatest constitutional lawyer. He repeatedly said that the democracy has survived in India because we have had a professional military. And this professional military was created very deliberately by the evangelical movement, and we need somebody to research this and write a chapter on it, how evangelicalism gave a professional military to India, which is now being saffronized. But it is because of that military that, according to Palkhiwala, freedom has survived in India. So if you're looking for a specific incident, that would be the best incident of where the British East India Company soldiers were actually looting villages, burning villages, raping women, and how that infuriated the Christian conscience to change the nature of British governance in India. And you might do a research on it and write on it. Thank you.